Thank you. Thank you so much. I'd like to thank the Rotary Club and the leadership and my dear friend Joanne for inviting me out to present. I really appreciate it. I'd also like to thank fellow Rotarian Richard Rowenthal, past president, for his help and support and leadership in helping us recently establish an interclub Rotary Climate Action Committee. And I'm privileged to serve as the admin on this council so that we can come together and share best practices around combating climate change. I am going to talk about College of Adaptive Arts by sharing my personal story of why we created the college. I do have a personal goal to give a TED Talk in my lifetime because I believe that the following story contains an idea worth sharing. I would appreciate all input and feedback after my presentation on how I can improve the program. So my name is DeAnna Pursai, and I'm director and co-founder of College of Adaptive Arts, which provides an equitable collegiate experience to adults with special needs who historically haven't had access. The title of my story is called Igniting the Spark of Abilities. I'd like to point out that you're going to see this symbol throughout the presentation, and it's fairly meaningful to our community because we refer to ourselves as the Mountain Movers, and it was created by one of our professors in the School of Art. There are 3 points of this story. Number 1, what happens to individuals with special needs when their spark of abilities is ignited? Number 2, there's a fairly significant age cutoff that currently exists for when individuals with special needs have the opportunity to have their spark of abilities ignited. And number 3, what happens to the rest of us, the general public at large, when we get to experience this electric spark? So my story begins on August 8, 1973, the day my baby sister Angel was born. As soon as she was delivered, the baby was whisked out of the delivering room, and after about 10 minutes, the doctor came in and informed my mom that the baby who had just been born would never be able to walk or to talk or to clothe herself or feed herself, and it was recommended that she be put in an institution. Now, independent of this scene, just 1 year prior, in 1972, an up-and-coming national reporter by the name of Geraldo Rivera had been given a key by a doctor from the Willowbrook State School who had just resigned in protest of the conditions of the institution. Entering the premises unannounced with the film crew, Mr. Rivera found such scenes as 6 children inhabiting 1 crib and children in wheelchairs lining the corridors of the institution with minimal interaction or engagement, and children, adults and children alike, living in subhuman conditions. Now, it very well may be that this information had not trickled down yet to our rural Indiana community. My mom shared that she knew that the doctors had not had time to do any tests on the baby, and she demanded to see the baby, fearing the worst of what her condition might be. When the nurses returned to her a warm pink bundle, my mom said, "Thanks, but no thanks." She said, I counted 10 fingers and 10 toes and said, "Thanks, but no thanks, I'm taking my baby home." So that was a day of an incredible journey growing up with my baby sister, Angel, 16 months my junior. My mom said I loved being a big sister, and my baby sister certainly did learn how to sit up, and she learned how to walk, and she learned how to talk and to ask questions, and she became a rich and vibrant family member, providing our family with endless love and joyful memories. So as we kept growing, I realized that being a sibling to a sister with a special need came with a unique perspective whereby family scenarios did not always add up the same way that typical families might experience. We had a lake cottage growing up in northern Indiana, and I loved to watch my sister. She'd go out the end of the pier with her imaginary tackle box, and she would thread her imaginary worm and cast her imaginary fishing pole far out into the water. And when the boats would come past, Angel loved to fling off her shoes and socks and wave to the boats with her feet. And my friend visited me one time, and I said, yeah, Angel loves to wave to the boats with her feet. And my friend replied, well, that's kind of weird. And I said, no, it's not. It's perfectly normal. She does it all the time. And then it dawned on me that maybe it's not so normal to wave to boats with your feet, and maybe it's my family's dynamics, which are quite a bit different than perhaps a typical family. As Angel continued to grow, it became pretty apparent that one of her innate abilities lie in the area of comedy. My mom loved to share the story that one day, when Angel was a young teenager, my mom took her to church on a Wednesday night to a Bible study class. At the end of class, each person got to go around and say a prayer. When it got to be my sister's turn, she waited until the room got nice and quiet, and she prayed very loudly and very clearly, "Dear Lord, please help my mom stop cussing." Angel always knew how to read a room and figure out how to get a laugh. She has a most wicked sense of wit and humor. Now, high school years continued to be a really joyful period in our lives. My mom decided to put her in the academic track in high school versus the vocational track, whereby most special education students spent their days. This was an intentional decision because my mom wanted her to continue to build her social skills, to build her friendship base, and to access elective classes like art and choir that the typical students enjoyed. I remember in high school, when I would go to football games, I affectionately referred to myself as just Angel's sister, because the cheerleaders would squeal with delight when they saw Angel and flock around her like she was a rock star. It was really a rich and rewarding period in our lives. Then age 22 came for Angel, and I would realize that would be a significant turning point for her as well as for our family. She was able to stay in high school for 4 more years, and at age 22, she was mandated out of the school system. I didn't think a lot about it at the time. My focus had turned to going to college, which college I was going to attend, if I was going to play sports, what I wanted to study. After high school, my mom reported that Angel had been given a job coach, and they really loved their service coordinator, and she was cleaning the desks at our local high school in the summertime. She seemed really happy, and my mom was really happy with the services that she was receiving. In my mind, I reconciled to myself, cool, this is what happens to adults with special needs when they get out of the school system. The next summer, I came home from college, and I found that my sister had gained a fair bit of weight, and she wasn't in the program anymore. I asked my mom what had happened, and my mom had said that the job study program had lost its funding and that their service coordinators had changed, and they didn't jive quite as well with this one versus the last one. Oops, sorry. Over the years, we would come to experience that this was going to be a regular pattern of finding a good program, being part of it for a finite time, only to have it go away because of budget cuts, or she would exit out after a fixed period of time. Service coordinators and care providers are in constant flux. I learned because of the nature of the job being one with rather low wages, often with no medical benefits and little opportunity for professional growth and development. College was never going to be an option. I'm going to go back to college. College was never going to be an option for Angel because of her intellectual disability. She reads and writes at about a 3rd grade level. The vocational opportunities that were presented to her were primarily in the areas of menial positions such as picking up trash, cleaning, bagging groceries, or pushing shopping carts. Angel didn't seem real interested in attending the one-day program, which was available to us in our community in rural Indiana. When I went and visited with her, I distinctly remember getting the same pit in my stomach feeling that I would get when I would enter a nursing home. The thought that this could be my existence starting at the age of 22 left me quite distressed and demoralized. It was such a drastically different landscape than the opportunities that she had experienced for her first 22 years of life. It was a tumultuous time for our family because this was the time that she just seemed to be maturing and waking up to who she was as an individual and where she might fit in the larger society. And it was the exact same time that a fair number of her support services abruptly ended. Being almost like a twin to a sibling with Down syndrome, I often wonder what life would have been if our roles had changed, if I had been the one with the disability and she had been the typical one. This notion was recently brought home to me when I was watching one of our students exit the bus while I was driving. I watched most of the passengers shuffle off ahead of her, and she was just walking down the street. It got me thinking as to what the world might look like through the eyes of an adult with a special need. It might very well be that a good portion of your life is looking at people's backsides when you're out in the community and you don't navigate at the same pace as them. It might seem like a big blur when everyone around you is involved in their lives and devices and quickly whizzing past you, not even realizing that you're there. Each day, I know that we get hard, quizzical expressions of surprise, shock, pity, and perhaps a hint of revulsion. It can be a fleeting look, and it's often quickly followed by averted eyes. There's expressions of you can't, and don't, and no throughout the day when you're navigating in a world that's really not set up for you. And there might also be a fair bit of existential time when you're waiting for transport or waiting for somebody to show up or the next direction to be given. And you might think that so much of the world is out of your control and you don't know exactly how to jump in or show the world what you might have to offer. So with this knowledge and experience in hand, my colleague and I founded an adaptive collegiate environment in 2009 for adults who are interested in continuing their education, but for which an accredited associate's degree on a community college campus would not be feasible for a myriad of options. In this collegiate environment, students do not have to be able to read or write to enroll. There are no tests, so there's no papers, there's no homework. We invite students only to sign up for classes that they have an interest in. And it is an authentic collegiate environment whereby our students are able to earn credits and diplomas, albeit privately accredited, non-transferable diplomas, but diplomas nonetheless, just like they see their peers and their cousins and their siblings achieving. In this college environment, we have 10 schools of instruction. Within our School of Library Arts, I'm going to go back to library arts, we instill the love of reading. In our School of Dance, we give opportunities to our adults to become dancers and choreographers. The School of Business cultivates entrepreneurs. Our School of Music fosters the love of music and adaptive instruments. The School of Television and Film, the students learn to become on-camera actors as well as camera operators and lighting operators. Within our School of Theater, we celebrate stage actors and thespians. Within our School of Art, students learn to become fine artists, exploring various artistic mediums. Within our School of Communications, we inspire orators and speakers. And in our School of Health and Wellness, we have a cheer team, a walking team, and a golf team. and within our School of Science and Technology, students are allowed to explore scientific concepts and the latest adaptive technological advances. In addition to our 10 schools of study, this college gets students out in the community to be public speakers. We have distance learners for students who have either moved away or don't have regular access to transportation. They can Zoom or beam in real time to classes. We have a parent education component, support network, where parents of the students regularly gather to share resources and ideas and to become educated. And we have touring troops, over 10, that perform multiple times a month in the community. Another unique layer of this college that's evolved over time is that over half of our staff and professors are also individuals with differing abilities. These are leaders in our community who have hidden differences, such as being cancer survivors, having autism, or having dyslexia, as well as individuals with visible differences, such as being wheelchair users, having cerebral palsy, or having visual impairments. One of our directors of our School of Music has a degree from Berkeley. He was a professional musician on the circuit for 10 years. He happened to have been blinded at 4 months of age in a car accident sitting on his mother's lap, and he hasn't had the best of luck in traditional workplace environments, but in our college, he's a leader, he's a professor, and he's sharing his knowledge and trade with our students. So we've gotten a lot of good messaging when we say that we're kind of like, this college is kind of like the Special Olympics model for athletics. If you're not familiar with the Special Olympics model, it's an opportunity for individuals of any age or ability to enjoy another sport each season for as long as they're interested. Now, we get a lot of questions at our college, what are you training them to do? And this is certainly a valid and logical question when you're thinking through the lens of traditional vocational opportunities. But in our college, we're changing that metaphorical lens away from disability onto their abilities and really focusing on a rich and engaging collegiate environment. So just like you wouldn't ask a Special Olympics basketball player which NBA team they're aspiring to try out for, this is a college environment that focuses on lifelong education, igniting the spark of abilities. So our mindset, so that they can become the best versions of themselves, which is a basic human notion that we all share. The mindset is, instead of giving adults with special needs a broom or a rag, we give our students paintbrushes and microphones and a new and innovative set of tools to allow them to access and spark their authentic abilities. So now I'm going to do a small social experiment with you. I'm a pretty good dancer. I've danced my whole life, and I've decided that I'm going to learn a one-minute piece of choreography. I'm going to hire a professional choreographer to coach me through, and I'm going to practice for 3 hours a day for 6 weeks. I'm going to purchase a cute little red flapper dress, and I'm going to put myself on social media for 1 minute. How many views on social media would you give me? Just shout out. 20,000. Good. Well, thank you. That's very nice. Let's talk afterwards. Yeah. Anybody else? All right. So here is just this with one of our students. So for little Natalie, it's 44,000. So this was a real thunderbolt revelation for me that when given the right circumstances and structure, our adults with special needs have abilities to connect with the world that us typical folks would never in a million years be able to hold a candle to. So I think that as a society, we're missing the boat when we exclusively focus on trying to fit them into existing vocational opportunities when so many times their authentic abilities lie in becoming contributors to the economies of joy and happiness. Feedback, I'm almost done, thanks. I know I'm going over just a little bit. Feedback from our college as we perform at cancer walks and senior centers at holiday times and disability awareness days and community festivals with the mission of transforming perception and celebrating abilities is, I didn't know they could do that. And I feel so alive when I watch them perform. And for one of our parents, he reports, CAA means a future for our family where my son can continue to grow and flourish and become the best versions. So how could you help us move this mountain? Number one, the next time you see an adult with a disability in the community, you can look them in the eye and you can smile and you can think about what abilities might lie right underneath the surface that are yearning to get out. You can come and take a tour each Friday that our college is in session. You can help us find new places in the community to perform and connect. And you can help us transition this college model to a permanent infrastructure so that our students have access to a sustainable and replicable infrastructure for lifelong learning in an equitable collegiate environment. So I've mentioned two of my 3 points. Number one, what happens to adults when their spark of abilities is ignited. Number two, there's still a pretty radical shift between their opportunities as children and their opportunities that they have access to as adults. And many times, it's still that old mindset of being in an institution for those opportunities. College of Adaptive Arts is part of a new wave of working with those adults and giving them more opportunities. My last point is what happens to the rest of us. And I'm going to tell it through one more story of a text that my sister sent to me last week. She said she was missing me 555%. And that number seems pretty valid to me when us typical people think differently and get creative and structure ways that allow adults to have their true and authentic abilities ignited. The rate of return to myself as an individual and to the community that gets to experience this joy seems like a pretty accurate number of 555%, which I think is the true idea we're sharing. Thank you. Sorry, I'm a little long. Thank you. Thank you.